Shalom, my dear friends. We're going to now be speaking a whole new series about the mitzvah of knowing that there's a God. Kind of the basics of making that very, very clear inside of us, that truth and that reality. And it's all based on the verse from the Torah where God gives us the Torah and he says the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. That very mitzvah of I am, that truth, that reality of I am, is already the mitzvah of belief in God, is that you're aware that there's one who's speaking to you. Now I want to read you the beginning of the Rambam, where he is delineating that mitzvah. Yesod ha-yesodes v'amad ha-chochmas. There's a foundation of all foundations, meaning the foundation that all the foundations are built upon, that all your big building, when we spoke about Yesod, that everything is built upon this foundation, the one that holds up the entire building. And that could be spiritually, your entire life is holding on, is sitting on, is resting on one foundation. And the Omer HaChochmas, a pillar of Chochmah, that which is holding up all the wisdom that you have. And we know that if you have a pillar that has a crack in it, everything comes down. And if you have a foundation of your building that has a crack in it, everything is going to come tumbling down. So what holds up everything? Which means, if this is not clear to us, then we don't really have clarity on anything else. So anybody who's a true seeker of God has to have this thing clear. Leida, you have to know. Leida, we're going to learn there's a distinction between das and Emunah. Leida. Here the Rambam says, Leida sheyesh sham matzui rishon, that there's a first cause. There's a first reality. There's a beginning to everything. For whom mamtzi kol hanimtza, and this cause, this being, brings into existence everything that you see. Mamtzi kol hanimtza is bringing into existence every single thing that you see around yourself. Which means this is not something from an ancient book. This is something that's alive right now. Every look around, everything that you see is being brought into existence by this being. V'akol hanimtzoim min hashamayim v'aretz, and all of existence, all the way up to the highest worlds, the spiritual worlds, all the way to the highest heavens, all the way down to the earth and every single thing in between. Loi nimtzu ela ma'amitas hamotzu, only exist, is only here. It's a double negative. Not here except. We would have no existence except from the truth of this existence. Everything that you see exists by virtue of the truth of that beginning existence, this first existence, the first cause, the beginning, the one. Now notice the Rambam has not mentioned anything here religious, just simply factual, that there's first cause. The first cause is something we spoke about many times before, being, how could you have a finite existence that comes from itself? How does finite create itself? Your mother, whose mother's, so how far back do you go? And if you say that you go all the way back for infinity, then that's a contradiction, because you can't have a finite sequence that goes on forever, because it wouldn't be infinity. It would preclude infinity, because it's a point along a scale. Anything in infinity would not have any points in it. So there had to be something beyond the system that started it. Ve'im yala ladas shu ein matzui ein davar achar yachal lihi matzos. There's nothing else that could be this first cause except something above the system. And then he goes on to explain this is God. The first cause is God.
The first cause is what we call God.
We call God.
Because we don't fully understand what He is.
We know that God is truth, and He's the first cause, the cause of every single thing that you see in this world. God is causing it. God is that truth. We also know that we mentioned the verse already, that God revealed Himself and said, I am God. And God chose to reveal that with regards to us coming out of Egypt. Why would that be significant? The Kuzari and others famously ask, when God makes the statement that you should know that I am God, i.e. that I exist, that the truth of existence is me, and that everything comes from my truth. There's a truth called God. Everything is coming into the world through that truth, as an extension of that truth, not as an independent truth. Like they say, I have my truth, you have your truth. There's one truth, and anything true in the world comes from that godly truth. And there's only one God. It's the one, and not one God in the category of many. Meaning God is one. We're going to get to that. Hardcore monotheism. And that God is the source of all existence. And all the truth of all existence is coming out of the truth of God. So there's no independent truth, like a secondary truth. There's the one ultimate truth of God, and everything else is coming out of that. Why during that epic moment of God revealing Himself does God want to say, and I took you out of the land of Egypt? Why doesn't God say, and I am the Lord your God who made heaven and earth? Wouldn't that be more impressive?
You weren't there when that happened.
So very good. One answer to that is nobody was there. So it's not such a great... we're very impressed by heaven and earth. It's very beautiful. Existence itself. But nobody was there. Secondly,
We don't have any personal connection to the creation because everyone else also was a result of the creation.
Beautiful.
So specifically to the Jewish people.
So very good. Even though God is for all of humanity, obviously, the main message of the revelation, this is the first of the 10 Commandments, of I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, is that don't think that I made the world and then I left and abandoned you. So this mitzvah that we're delving into now, the mitzvah of Emunah, which is the mitzvah of everything that the Rambam is telling us stands upon, and all wisdom, which one of the main jobs of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, is to teach wisdom to the world. That we've been charged with this. We're fanatics for wisdom. All we want to do is ingest more of the wisdom of God and then be a light to the nations to share that wisdom with the world. And we're crazy about it. One of the elements of that emunah that we have to know very, very clear is God did not make the world and then leave. As if to say that I'm not interested in this world anymore. Yeah, this I'm God. Why would I want to hang out with some lowly schmoes like you guys?
Consciously willing it into existence.
Consciously willing, we're going to get, that's it, a deeper level of emunah. Yes. Is that God is all the time putting the necessary energy into the system, which is one of the ways that Kabbalistically we understand how you could have an infinite God and a finite creation, and it's not a contradiction. That's our answer to the Aristotelian dilemma, which is how, if infinite is the logical existence, but finite is undeniable, how do you reconcile? The answer is Kabbalah, and specifically that we are inside of God, and God is willing finite existence into creation every single second, and therefore that He's willing us into existence means we're totally dependent on the infinite, not like groveling, not that type of thing, but a deep connection, a relationship, a dependence, and that yes, God is willing us, which means He's interested in us. And us coming out of Egypt means He heard our cries and responds to that. There's an intimate relationship that never separated whatsoever. Yes?
Because we are of God, like we're made of God's stuff, whatever that is. But
Correct.
But not with the will or ego of God. Like the ego meaning like the...
Yes, we don't say that a human being is God, because then that would become idol worship. Let's bow down to that human being, as if God became somewhat finite, right? To say that person is God is now putting finite attributes onto the infinite. One of the biggest things you'll notice about Torah thought is that you just open up the Bible. Everything is about, be careful about those graven images. You know that stuff? Graven. When I was growing up, that was graven images. Like whatever that is.
Birds.
Graven, yeah, be careful about that. That's one major thing that you notice. You come into our places of worship. We're not into images. Because any identification and association that God is somehow, meaning God, the entirety of God, could be pointed to, is now saying, well, I should worship that shtender. The answer is, of course, the shtender is made out of God. Everything in creation is made out of God. There's nothing else. It's all God. But you don't say that is God. That's where things start to go south very fast.
Because like a higher level of neshama is like the divine spark from Hashem, right? Like that's the outside the body neshama.
You see, everything is filled with godly energy. Everything is filled with godly consciousness. Everything. So why is that very, very significant? Because it makes that nothing is mundane anymore. There's no such thing as, oh, that piece of wood. No, that piece of wood has godly consciousness because God is willing it into existence. So now I relate to that as, what does God want me to use that for? This is all in the rubric of the mitzvah of Emunah. And the mitzvah of Emunah is a constant mitzvah, one of the 6 constant mitzvahs. So you're engaging now in a biblical constant mitzvah. And you're going to have eternal reward by listening and contemplating these ideas. And then to walk out of this year and continue to contemplate it. Every single thing is made up of the fabric of God, and God is willing it into existence and totally aware of it. And then your role is, so what is it here for? What's the relationship I'm supposed to have with it? That I know that God is willing this Keter chair into existence, and for what? What is the relationship that I should have on it? Which also shows you that one of the main mitzvahs, there was 2 mitzvahs that Adam was given in Gan Eden. La'avda l'shamra. I want you to work this garden, and I want you to guard the garden. Work the garden. The whole world is here for you. God said, I gave this world for you to use it. But just guard it. Don't destroy it. You want to have a nice party. Then there's always those guys that want to come and like trash the house. Like, who invited you? Like, why you guys like? You know, those guys that come into the party, like, and they just like start. Like, come on, like, why are you guys trashing the place? Like, oh, you just ruined it for everybody. Yes.
So Jewish puts a big focus on environmentalism, but not to the detriment of people.
Yeah, we put a major focus on. You're allowed to use this world for God. You're not allowed to destroy this world. You're not allowed to destroy this world. So for example, let's say you want to have 50 guests over for Shabbos. Friday night dinner, 50 guests. So either you can have 50 guests, Eliyahu, come over, and then you and your wife are cleaning up, Shabbos, it's like 5-course meal with all the china. Either you could have 50 guests, 5-course meal, and you and your wife are doing dishes for the next week. Or you could get some very nice, disposable. Don't use any more than you need, but don't use any less than you need for those 50 guests. And then consciously you're making the decision to use those disposables in order to have a meal in honor of God, where people otherwise would never have come to that Friday night meal. You would have never been able to have that many guests, to experience a night where all you talk about is the greatness of God. If you have somebody that can help you with 50 sets of 5-course meal in the bone china, that would be very nice. I'd be very happy to have that. But someone else might say, yeah, but all the water that you're going to use to clean the dishes and the dishwashing machine. So The main message that the Torah is giving, and this is all part of Emunah, is be conscious. This world that God is giving you, that God is, His consciousness is in every single element of creation, that God is creating at all seconds. He's the Mamtzi, Kol HaNimtza. And it's all here by virtue of God's truth. So anything in this world, you have to know, why am I using this thing? I better connect it into the truth of God. Why am I using the plastic? If you don't tell me a reason in order to get close to God, then who said that you should be using it? Maybe that God doesn't want you to use the plastic now. Everything has to be brought back. How is this furthering the relationship with God and the mitzvahs? Yes.
So in the same way that we're sitting on plastic chairs, so we need to maybe have the conscious thought that we're sitting on these chairs that we're comfortable so we could have nothing distract us as we're listening to the shiur kind of thing?
As opposed to what would have been the alternative, sitting on the floor?
Standing and my foot hurts, it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to focus.
Yes. Every single thing is with conscious intent. Now you might say, why don't we just buy, old mahogany, silver inlaid? So I'm into that. I think that would be wonderful if you have a donor that would like to, and they'll last longer, and you won't have to use the plastic. If you have a donor that appreciates that, then that would be wonderful. $5,000 per chair. I think everyone would feel more royal sitting in mahogany, silver, gold inlaid, than $5,000 gold inlaid. It would be very, very. In the Beis Hamikdash, in the Temple of Jerusalem, everything, gold, silver, marble, rubies, gemstones. It was gorgeous. Gourd, acacia, beautiful. Everything was beautiful. Having a beautiful world is godly, yes. So yes, having a Shabbos table with gorgeous bone china, but then you have to know, okay, maybe when I have a smaller group, we'll use the bone china. But when there's 50 guests, that's, if I'm going to have to say no to people, there's 40 extra people that want to come to learn about there being a creator of the world. And they never came to a Shabbos meal. And they never experienced what it means for people to not have their phones, to actually have scintillating conversation, to see husbands and wives relating in a nice way to each other, the kids asking questions, people by candlelit. And you tell them, these 40 people, I'm sorry, we can't have you because, there's going to be, we're going to have a couple plastic plates and, you're going to have to take a back seat. And therefore, please don't come to my house and enjoy the briskets and enjoy the fine foods and the delicacies because there's going to be some plastic plates. So we don't say that. We say, please come over. We're going to use some plastic plates, but not more than we need to because we want you to come to our home. Because God said, Adam, this world is for you. Work it, enjoy it, use it for things that will bring people to my consciousness. Just don't trash it.
Plastic is trashing in a lot of ways.
So you have to know if there's better ways to do things. If you could find disposable, or what do they call them? Bamboo or compostable or corn or things. But then is that all sorts of genetically modified products, corn, soy? Am I supporting? You have to know. A Jew's got to be mega conscious of everything. You have to know that this world has to be utilized. God is saying, yes, utilize this world to bring consciousness. And there's energy. We want to get to freer forms of energy and utilizing energy in greater ways possible. All this is done, though, with the greatest level of consciousness possible. Nikola Tesla had some wondrous innovations, many of which we don't know about, or some do, but they're being suppressed. There are so much that we know of how to do things better. So the Torah way is plunging deeper. How can we be more conscious that God, the ultimate truth, everything is existing from that truth, and we want to link everything back to God. This is the beginning, part 1 of our Emunah series. Looking forward to growing together and Bezrat Hashem, greeting these wonderful days of free energy where everything is associated back to God as the source of everything. With Mashiach Tzidken b'mher v'yamin. Amen. A gesunte Zimmer, a very healthy, wonderful, strong summer for all of our dear friends here and around the world.
Could you answer a quick question?
Yeah.
Could you clarify